All right, everybody, the NBA playoffs is approaching. We have 1 week left until the NBA regular season is over. Let's go ahead and break down and see who will make the NBA playoffs. Well, we already know which 10 are in. What matches could who could they be playing in the first round, and how could we get there? I'm about to break it down here. So, like I said, if you guys haven't already, make sure to hit the like, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to join the Discord. Links in the description. Make sure you guys do follow me on Twitch and all that fun stuff. And make sure you guys go check out our program, our aka our Discord. Go check that out. Awesome community down there. Make sure you guys go vote, and make sure you guys go into my profile chat. Make sure you guys go into the community section of the YouTube channel. Make sure you guys check that MJ versus LeBron survey. I'm currently doing that for something for my channel. So if you guys have something going over, a special video coming up for my channel. So if you guys have all that stuff, make sure to do that. So over here, we're going to break down all the possible scenarios. We're going to do Eastern Conference first, and then we're going to be doing Western Conference. But like I said, we're going to be doing the Eastern Conference first, and then we'll go ahead and get into the Western Conference. So this is just the Eastern Conference video. Next video will be a Western Conference video, all that fun stuff. So like I said, make sure to hit the like, hit that subscribe button. We do appreciate your support. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get it moving with the East. All right, everybody, so we are starting off here with Detroit Pistons, and basically what this video is basically my prediction of what I think they'll finish. Obviously, it has the Pistons finishing as the 1 seed. We're going to be talking about who I think they're most likely to play in the first round right now as I see it and how the schedule all goes, and then we'll do all the possible matchups and scenarios, and we'll talk about a little bit how far this team could go in the postseason here. So that's basically what these videos are about here. So starting things off, we got the Detroit Pistons here, currently the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. As you guys see, the standings are right behind me. I think they hang on to that. I think the Pistons get the number 1 seed. I think they, well, we already know they have the number 1 seed. They clinched the number 1 seed actually on Saturday, I believe, since they won. Yeah, they clinched the 1 seed, so that's definitely crucial for them. Yeah, this Pistons team's been good. They've just been resilient all season long. Even without Cade Cunningham, they're still doing a phenomenal job of finding ways to win basketball games. So yeah, the Pistons been one of the more better teams in the NBA as of late. Likable first round matchup for me for the Pistons, I think is actually going to be Charlotte, to be completely honest or not, because I know Charlotte's going to be in the play-in. Now, it's definitely not possible that it's definitely possible that Charlotte actually escapes the play-in, because if you look at the standings right there, right now the Charlotte Hornets are only a half a game out of the play-in, which everybody would be like, what? Who the hell expected that? So but I think they're going to play Charlotte, because Charlotte does have a pretty, they don't have like the best schedule ever, but at the same time they have a schedule that they could lose a couple of games or could drop a couple of games, but at the same time this team is balling out. So so yeah, I can definitely see him playing another opponent. I can see him like playing a team like Toronto. That's why I had other possible matchups here. They can literally play anybody from that playing tournament. They can play Miami, whoever comes out of that 18 game. Toronto, I don't think Toronto necessarily. I don't think they're going to play Toronto. It's definitely a chance because they're the 17 game. I think they'll get into that 17 game. They might win that one. They could play Orlando or Miami. I would not be surprised if they played one of those teams, or Philadelphia. Because you know Philadelphia does have this playoff curse, so it definitely could happen. But based off the schedule, looking at everything, I think they're gonna play Charlotte. I think it matches up for them to play Charlotte in the first round. Like I said, these playoffs are going to be something. It's going to be something. Like I said, Detroit's definitely going to be waiting. I think Detroit is going to be one of those better teams in the NBA. Like I said, next week we will get into our NBA playoff full predictions here. So I don't know if I am going to pick them to go all the way, but they're going to be definitely a decent team to be fortune with. So we'll see. But I do like the Pistons. They as a 1 seed. That's going to be something to watch this year. It's going to be a little interesting. All right, moving on, we got the 2-seeded Boston Celtics, which I do think they will keep. I think the Celtics will keep the 2 seed. And the thing about the Celtics here is that we already know what this team is. They're a championship contender with Jason Tatum. Without him, they've been phenomenal. Jaylen Brown's been phenomenal. The whole team has been phenomenal. Like I said, I hate to say it because you guys know I'm a Lakers fan. You guys know how much I hate the Celtics, but I got to keep it real. I think the Celtics have been pretty damn good so far this year. Like I said, I do think they will keep that 2 seed. Obviously, they can't catch up with the Pistons because the Pistons are the 1 seed. They already clinched the 1 seed. So I do think they will have the 2 seed. Now, they do have a game this week, I believe. It's against New York. And that game determines the tiebreaker, which could be huge. Who gets that 2 and 1 seed. But I think they'll keep to that 2 seed. I know that game. The game, I believe that next game is in New York, which could be a little bit tricky for Celtics. But I think the Celtics are definitely good enough to have that game winnable for them. So, like I said, we'll see who I pick in the pick show coming up. That video is actually coming up on Tuesday because I have a lot to pre-recording and get done to you guys on Monday. So, anyway, yeah, Celtics. I like him as a 2 seed in this one. Like what first round match, I'm actually gonna say it's Philadelphia. I know Philadelphia right now is the 6th seed right now, but Philadelphia does have definitely a tougher schedule than, let's say, Toronto, Charlotte. I mean, Philadelphia does have the last couple games. Sure, the last two is kind of a break. They play Philadelphia and the Bucks. But I'm just looking at the standings, like it just feels like you can't really afford one loss in the Western Conference. If you do, if you do, it looks like you're going to fall down to the playing tournament. And Philadelphia still has to go to San Antonio, which they could be playing their starters. I'm not sure. We'll see. I think they will because they still have a shot at the 1 seed for now, and they're going to be playing Houston, who's going to be playing their guys for, for better seating purposes. So I do think they'll play their guys. Yeah, they do get a break with the Bucks and Indy coming up, but at the same time, like, those are two brutal games, and it just feels like, dude, you can't really lose a lot of games in Eastern Conference if you want to hang on to that 6th seed. So I think Philadelphia is going to be the more probable first round matchup here. I think they'll get in the plan. I do think they will be whoever comes out to the 7-game plan, but we'll see. Like I said, this is not a prediction. I mean, this is a prediction, but I'm just saying that this is not going to really match up. When we get into our picks, where I get to our playoff pick show next week, will be actually the official matchup. So other teams I can see them playing. I can see them playing Charlotte, Atlanta, and Toronto as well, because all three of them teams are basically in the mix. I could put Orlando and Miami in there as well, but I just think they're too far down there. I mean, more Orlando's definitely more probable, but at the same time, Orlando does have a pretty difficult schedule, so I'm going to stick with them three. I think them three have a slight chance of beating Boston, or playing Boston in the first round. I don't know about beating them, but playing them in the first round. But yeah, that's what we got here for the Boston Celtics. All right, next up we have the New York Knicks. The Knicks are actually a tough one to pick because the Knicks actually do have a somewhat pretty tough schedule to come out of the gates with, but at the end of the day, I do see them staying at that 3 seed position. I don't think they're gonna fall. They definitely have a chance to fall to 4. Cleveland's definitely chasing them. They're only a game out, but I just don't think to be completely honest with you, I just don't think New York's schedule is tough enough for me. I mean, I don't know, Cleveland's right behind the Rats, but I don't know who has the tiebreaker between the two. I think the Knicks have the tiebreaker, but I'm not certain on that. And like I said, the Knicks actually have a couple stretch this week where they play against a lot of teams that are in a conference. Like, they play the Hawks, which that game's not going to be easy. It's in Atlanta. And they play Boston, they play the Raptors, and they play the Hornets. But the good thing about those 3 games, they're all at home, so that could be a pretty big thing there. So it just feels like for the Knicks, if they can go at least 2-2 over the stretch, I do think they will secure the 3 seed, but only if they have the tiebreaker. Like I said, they could easily fall to the 4 seed. That's what I'm saying about the Knicks. They could easily fall to the 4 seed, which I'll talk about that more when we get into Cleveland next. But I do think the Knicks will hang on to that 3 seed. But if they do hang on to that 3 seed, I like them to play Toronto in the first round. I really do like that, because like I said, I do think Philadelphia falls to that plan. However, I do think Toronto has the easier schedule out. Coming out of the 6th seed. So I like Toronto because I just like their schedule a lot more than I do in Philadelphia. So I think they're gonna play Toronto in the first round, and if we get that, that's gonna be a very entertaining first round series. Other teams possible: Charlotte. Like I said, they're not out of the scenario. They're only a half game out of the 6th seed, so that's definitely very still possible. And basically anybody in that playing field, like they can play Philadelphia, they can play Orlando. I'm gonna put Orlando in there. I think I meant to put Orlando at the Boston, because I can see Boston playing Orlando in the first round as well, and that would be a rematch if we get that. But I'm gonna put Orlando in there because Orlando's only game out. I decided to keep Miami out of it because Miami's schedule is tough. They got to go to Orlando 2 times each, so that'll be a bit challenging there. So I'm not going to put Miami in here. Now I'm going to put Atlanta in there as well, because like I said, Atlanta could drop a couple games. I'm not expecting it, but Atlanta could drop a couple games, and then they can move down into that 6th seed. So it's still possible that Atlanta can get the 6th seed, but I'm just saying, like, they're 14 other scenario, but I do like them to play Toronto in the first round. That's what it's looking like to me. that they'll play. But at the same time, you just never know. So it'll be a little interesting. Next up, we got the 4-seeded Cleveland Cavaliers, which I do think they will stay at. I am going to pick the Cavs to remain at that 4 seed and going into the playoffs, which, if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm actually, to be completely honest, I think Cleveland should actually stick to that 4 seed, believe it or not. And I'll talk about it here in just a few moments here. But yeah, I do think Cleveland comes out of that gate as the 4 seed. Their schedule doesn't look too brutal. I mean, they play Memphis, they have a doubleheader against Atlanta, one at home, one away, and then they play Washington. So that's not that bad of a schedule. If they win like 3 of those games, they could possibly move up to that 3 seed. And we'll talk about here in just a few moments here. Why I don't think they should do that. To me, the likable first round matchup. To me, if they stay at that 4 seed, which I'm predicting here, I think they're going to play Atlanta in the first round because, like I said, Atlanta's schedule isn't too bad. But at the same time, there's no way that Atlanta can catch up to Cleveland because they're 4 games behind them right now in the standings. So you can see, and I just think that Atlanta in Cleveland, I just think they're basically locked into that 5 seed, 5 seed matchup, which would be a very entertaining first round matchup. So that's why I have it. I think they will play Atlanta here in the first round. But the other, I mean, I can see them playing. I can see them playing Philadelphia and Toronto just because the 2 teams are only 2 games out of Atlanta, so it's definitely not. And I can definitely see him playing Charlotte too, but I don't think Charlotte's gonna climb up that high of a mountain. And 2.5 games seems like a little bit more of a bigger challenge, so I'm gonna roll them out. I should really only put Philadelphia here because I can definitely see them but their schedule's tough. And then Toronto is definitely a possibility because they're only 2 games out with a week to play. You know, you lose a couple games, you could definitely play the Cleveland Cavaliers to that 5 seed position, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they will play Atlanta. But the only reason I'm saying that the Cavs should probably stick at that 4 seed is because of the second round matchup. Because it doesn't really matter who you play in the first round. I think it matters if you play in the second round. You know, you get a really good experienced. To me, if you get a really good experience, and you gotta, for the Cavs, you just gotta ask yourself the question: in the second round, would you rather play against a very inexperienced Pistons team who has not been in the playoffs in years, or would you rather play? Jump up to the 3 seed and play a Celtics team who recently won a championship? So I just think Cleveland just wants to ask that question. I think they should stick at that 4 seed. I think that should be the well-rounded trip there. So I like Cleveland finishing 4th here. Next up, we got the Atlanta Hawks. Yeah, I do have them finishing as the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. Like I said, their schedule is not too bad here coming off. I just explained it. They have a doubleheader with the Cavs, which could be a little bit interesting, but I actually do think they will split that. I think Cleveland will win 1. I think Atlanta will win 1. I think they'll split that. They play against the Knicks coming up today, I believe. So that's gonna be a pretty tough one. Can they win that game at home? That's gonna be a good test for them. And then they play Miami. So definitely not the easiest road out if you're in the Hawks, but also feels like if you win like 2 of those games, if you go 2-2, you're pretty much locked into that 5 seed. So as long as they go 500 during that stretch, I do think they will arrive that number 5 seed. I think they will, and if they do that, I believe they will play Cleveland. I think Cleveland would be their likable first round matchup if they're able to hang on to that 5 seed, which I am predicting here. So yeah, I like them playing Cleveland in round 1. But the other possible scenario is if the Knicks, because you know the Knicks could definitely lose a couple games. Cleveland is only a game out of New York for that 4 seed, so they could definitely move. They could definitely change. So Cleveland could definitely move up to the 3 seed and definitely have a shot to. I wouldn't recommend that they do it, but they have a chance to do it here. And like I said, the Knicks are definitely other possible. Like I said, they only have a 1-game lead. I do not know who has the tiebreaker between those 2 teams, but if Cleveland has it, then that would be massive. So so the Knicks are definitely a strong possibility, which would be interesting if we get a Knicks versus Hawks first round, because you know you guys know how to. Ever since Trae Young is there, you guys know how that history has been between those 2 teams. You know, they like Trae Young, they don't like each other, so that would be a very interesting first round matchup if we can get it though. But Atlanta, but just by looking at the schedule and how things are going, it looks like they're playing Cleveland here. Next up, we got the Toronto Raptors. Yeah, I actually do have the Raptors jumping the Sixers and moving on to that 6 seed in the Eastern Conference here. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I think Toronto just has the easier schedule than Philadelphia. I think they can actually win a couple of these games that I don't really see Philadelphia winning. I mean, it's definitely possible, but I definitely would not recommend it. It just feels like, and we'll go ahead and get to the Western Conference later on today, but I just think that Toronto has the very much easier schedule than the rest of these Western Conference teams, and I really do believe that. Toronto, like I said, they have a doubleheader with Miami, so that's not gonna be interesting. But they have them both at home. That's definitely winnable. They played against the Knicks on the road, who definitely could be benching their starters at some point if the Cavs don't lose a couple games. So that could be manageable, and they have the tiebreaker. And they play Brooklyn, so and they should win against Brooklyn. Just looking at the matchups here, I think Toronto actually jumps Philadelphia and gets the 6th seed from them. And if they do, I think that whoever comes out that 6th seed, I think it will be Toronto in this case. I think they're going to be playing New York. I think their national destiny is New York to play in that first round. Now you might actually think about why the hell am I putting Boston in this conversation? Why they even have a chance? You know, Celtics, they could lose. I mean, the only reason they're playing the Celtics is because they definitely could lose a couple games that you wouldn't really expect. Maybe, you know, they're benching a couple guys, not all their guys. Maybe they're benching a couple guys there. They drop a couple games. New York catches up to them. Right now, if the Knicks definitely win in New York, that could definitely that could flip. Because Knicks have the tiebreaker. It's only like a 2-game, really a 1-game lead now because of the tiebreaker. So yeah, but Celtics definitely have a chance. I'm not recommending it, but it is definitely possible. And then Cleveland is possible as well, because I say they could definitely move to the 3 seed. They could catch up to New York. They're only 1 game out of New York right now, so Toronto could definitely play New York in the first round if they do get that 6 seed. But I do have them jumping and getting that 6 seed, so I do think that those 2 teams are also a chance here. Like I said, I'm not really recommending Boston, but I can recommend Cleveland. But I'm gonna go with New York if they do get that 6 seed, which I do think they will. I think they're gonna play the Knicks in the first round. All right, next up we got the Philadelphia 76ers. I do have them falling in the play-in tournament as a 7 seed because, like I previously said over and over again, I think their schedule is a lot harder than Toronto's. So if that is the case here, I know Philadelphia, it's a pretty stacked team on paper. Philadelphia is going to be one of those teams that they're going to be a low seed in the playoffs, but they're a team that I probably would not want to play in the first round because, you know, just their ability, but just the ability of their scoring, especially to get everybody healthy. You know, they get Embiid healthy, they get Maxey healthy, and then they get Paul George healthy all at the same time. That could be a pretty dangerous trio there to definitely deal with in a 7-game series. So because any one of those can go off, one of those players can go off, and they can be seen all season. Tyrese Maxey's been awesome. Joel Embiid, I know he's been injured. I know a lot of people are playing about the injury bug. Joel Embiid, that's definitely understandable, but he's definitely a beast when he's healthy, and you know we already know what Paul George is capable of. So, yeah, just by looking at the matchups here and the schedules, I do think they will fall into the play-in, but I do think they will get out of there. I think they will be the 7 seed, and if that does happen, they're going to play Boston in the first round likely. I mean, New York definitely has a chance to move up to that 2 seed, especially if they win that game at home against the Celtics. Now they have to win. It feels like they have to win that game against the Celtics. Because if not, I think Boston wins the tiebreaker, and I just don't think there's any possible scenarios how the Knicks can move up to the 2 seed from the Celtics, but the Knicks are definitely a chance because, you know, they're not too far off of Boston. Just 3 games, and it really would feel like 1 game if, you know, if the Celtics drop 1, the Knicks win 1, and if the Knicks win their game against Boston, then that's the tiebreaker to only win them 1 game. So so the Knicks would definitely have a chance. I'm only going to put Cleveland in here because Philadelphia could definitely stick at that 6 seed. Like I said, they have the tiebreaker with Toronto. So if that does happen, they could stick in that 6 seed, and if they do, I think Cleveland as well with New York at the 3 seed right now can definitely have a chance. So that's why I'm only going to put Cleveland in here, because I can definitely see them sitting at 6, and if they do, I think Cleveland has the possibility of moving up on New York. So I think that would definitely be the only really main 3 teams if Philadelphia gets out of the play-in tournament, which I do think they will. But yeah, I got Philadelphia. We're getting into the play-in, getting out of the play-in, and then playing one of these 3 teams in the first round. Moving on, we got the Charlotte Hornets. Yes, I actually do have Charlotte making the playoffs. I think they're going to be my last team in the playoffs. I do have Charlotte making it into that 8 seed position that they're currently in right now. And the reason I have them being it because I just think Charlotte deserves to be. I think it's time to realize that I think Charlotte Hornets, they deserve to be in the playoffs. I really do. I think it would be crazy, especially the way how Charlotte's been playing ever since the All-Star break. It would be crazy not to have them in the playoffs because they have been absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, ever since the All-Star break, they've been one of the better teams in basketball. They got to have one of the best records in basketball. The team's balling, the team is young, they look energetic. I just love watching this Hornets team. I really do. And I actually would be surprised if they did not make the playoffs. That's how much that's how much hype I have around the Hornets. And if they do get into the 8th seed, they're gonna play against Detroit, which actually, to believe it or not, is not the worst possible scenario. That's not the worst matchup that you can get here in the first round. Because, like I said, it's inexperienced versus inexperienced. And it's an inexperienced Pistons team playing against an inexperienced Charlotte team. So I do think that will be actually a 50-50 matchup, to be completely honest with you. If we do get that in the first round. But like I said, there is also a couple scenarios here. What if they actually get into that top six, and they can definitely play against one of those teams in the Eastern. I would definitely put the Cavs in here. I'm not going to, because I do think Charlotte does have now Charlotte, they have a lot of scenarios where they can go to and where they can finish, because just look at the standings here. So one possible scenario is they could definitely lose in the play-in. They could be the 8th seed. If they do that, I do think they will play Detroit in the first round, which I am going to predict that to happen. But if not, they can definitely move up to the 6th or 7th seed. What if they win that 7th seed game? Then the possible scenarios, they could play the Celtics or the Knicks, or if they do, however, get to that 6th seed, which is definitely doable. It's really doable. They're only half a game out of that. But if they do that, they could play either the Knicks or I probably should put the Cavs in here, should I? But I'm not going to now. It's too late. But they could play New York. They could play Cleveland. So I'm not going to recommend Cleveland, because, like I say, Cleveland, I do need they don't have the easiest schedule way out. I don't think they'll move to the 3 seed. I think the Knicks will stay there. So yeah, other possible scenarios, I can see them playing and moving up to the 6th seed. That's definitely very doable. I can see them playing Boston in that scenario, or New York, basically whoever flips out of that. Most likely it will be New York if they do get in that 6th seed position, which I hope they do. But yeah, like Charlotte, they do, but themselves do have not an easy schedule coming out. So we'll see what happens with the Hornets, but I do have them making the playoffs. All right, and now we got Orlando. I do have them finishing as a 9 seed here in this tournament. Like I said, definitely not ideal, because I don't have them making the playoffs, but I do have them losing in the playing tournament right now, just because I just don't think their schedule is that easy. And one thing for Orlando, like I said, they do one thing that could bite me in the ass for this if I get this wrong. Orlando does have a very favorable schedule coming out. They really do. And well, I know they play against Boston. At Boston, it's not going to be easy, but they play the Bulls. They play against the Timberwolves team at home, who is banged up. So that definitely could be a thing there. Like I said, there's no Ant right now. There's no Jacob McDaniels right now, so they could definitely win that. And then, but they do play Detroit, which I mean, Detroit could definitely bench their starters. I don't know. I think they will, because like I said, they already have the 1 seed locked up, or they want to get their starters more reps out there. I'm leaning towards bench, so that'll probably be a win there for Orlando. But at the same time, I don't know. That's why I'm kind of waiting a little bit to see about my predictions, and I'm kind of laying off a little bit. But yeah, like I said, if Orlando gets out, I do think they will be in that 9-10 game, and then they're going to have to win out. Because I do think Toronto's going to win a couple games. I do think Charlotte's going to win a couple games, and I do think Philadelphia's going to win a couple games. So that will keep Orlando and Miami in that, in that 9-10 race. Which, if they do get out, I mean, we're going to be talking about basically almost the same exact thing with Miami. But if they get out of there, I mean, Orlando's definitely more possible to get into that 7 seed playing game, because they're only a game out of. A matter of fact, they're only a half game out of that. It's definitely, so I'll put Orlando 9 seed just because of their probability over Miami. I think they have the bigger sample size. I just think they definitely have a bigger chance to move on to that 17 game in Miami. But like I said, if they get into the playoffs, I think they will stay in that 9-10 game. They should be able to play Detroit here in the first round. Boston's another chance, but that definitely, if they move up into that 17 game, and if they win that, they could have a rematch with the Celtics. So the Celtics are definitely a possibility, but yeah, I'm gonna not really believe that. I'm gonna go with Orlando, but I don't have them making the playoffs. If they do, that could be the possible scenarios. And last but not least, the Miami Heat. I mean, my Miami Heat are basically kind of on the same boat. They're like literally they're on the same boat as the Orlando Magic here. But the reason why I'm gonna say that Miami definitely has a chance to get to the playoffs. I'm for Miami, being 2 games out, well, basically being a game and a half out of the 8th seed, which would be the 7th seed matchup game. And to be honest with you, I hope we get Miami versus Charlotte in the 7 versus 8 game, but I just don't really see that happening. But I don't know. I mean, Miami's schedule is not the easiest. They go into Toronto, so you got to think they lose at least one there. They play against the Hawks, who is probably going to be playing their starters, but they do get a break against Washington. But those other 3 games are definitely all losable. They can definitely lose some of those games. So they might drop a couple games there. If they do that, I do think they will stick it to that 10 seed. We'll see if they are able to get past the play-in tournament. Like I said, it's more likely that Miami has to get past, and we've seen this team before. We've seen this team just last year and just get past this scenario. They got to get past the 9 seed game and the 8 seed game, so that will definitely be in the playing tournament. So that will definitely be a little bit into that 19 game in the 8-9 or 8-10 or whatever, whoever advances. So, but ideally, what the situation here is, they're gonna have to get past the two playing games regardless. I don't see them going undefeated during that stretch. I think they'll lose. I think they'll lose at least 2 games, maybe something like that, fall into the plan. So, so like I said, if they do get in, I think the first that they can get is the 9 seed. So I do think they'll play the Pistons in the first round. Celtics are definitely another chance. Just basically kind of on the same boat as Orlando, but Orlando has more of a chance to move up into that 7-8 game than I think Miami does, especially with this not easy schedule coming up. Like I said, that's gonna go ahead and do it here. Make sure you guys hit the like and that subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Let me guys know what you guys think we're gonna play in the first round here, and I really do appreciate everybody. But we'll be back later on with the Western Conference. So like I said, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Really do appreciate your support. This is MainNation.com. Peace out. Stay safe. As always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.